Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be kept dates, broken dates, and female flakiness. I got 3 emails I'm going to go through with you today. Before we get into the first one, I got a quote that I wrote I want to share with you on this topic before we go through and analyze the first guy's questions. And the quote says, "Women will make dates with guys they have no intention of keeping. They will also give out their phone numbers to guys who they have no intention of going out with. Why? It's much easier to ignore phone calls or break dates later than to risk any kind of awkward confrontation or interaction in person due to the chance that he might be the type of guy who doesn't take rejection well or take no for an answer. Every woman has encountered way too many men who are like this, and it's simply easier and safer for them to give men false hope in person than to shoot them down on the spot. If a woman does this to you, don't take it personally. Other men who are clueless have forced her to become this way. Have compassion, respect, and understanding of what women have to put up with from other guys who don't get it." After all, you got to remember, the odds are definitely in your favor if you're a guy watching this versus a woman, because you figure 97% of the guys don't get this, and so most of the men that women are going to encounter are clueless, and they create a lot of awkward, uncomfortable situations for women. And when you understand this, you'll actually see this and you'll observe this in the world, and it'll give you a tremendous amount of compassion and understanding of what women have to put up with. So let's jump into the first guy's email. He says, "Hey Corey, I've been talking to this waitress at a bar I frequent over the last month, and after a good conversation one evening, I asked her for her number and set up a date for that coming Saturday, and she agreed. She texted me on Friday and canceled, claiming she was sick. I responded by suggesting she call or text me when she felt better, and I received no response." Well, the bottom line is she canceled your date on you. And then when you texted her back, she just ignored you. That is definitely a sign of low attraction. He says, "The next time I was up at the bar, she was working and we had another conversation. I ignored her previous flake until after paying the bill and giving her a tip, and then brought it up." I would have never brought it up. "And suggested meeting up after she got off work that night." Because at the end of the day, if a girl cancels you and then ignores you, you don't keep running after her. And this is what happens. You obviously really like this girl, and you're ignoring the fact that she flaked on you. But that's disrespectful. If you have a lot of options and a lot of choices, you're just not going to waste your time giving that girl another opportunity. Plus, she ignored your text. That's not helping your case. When a woman just ignores you like that, you walk and you never look back. You just assume that she's not into you, and you're moving on to the next person. You don't keep trying to change their mind. He says she declined but told me to text her the next day and that we would hang out. I texted her after work with a simple, see, here she's telling you what to do, and then you're ignoring it and you're doing what you want to do, which is you're calling her right away, trying to get her to do something when she told you to text her the next day. He says, I texted her after work with a simple suggestion of meeting up at the pool hall later that night. Again, no response. What do you expect? She said, hey, call me tomorrow. That comes off as being needy and desperate. In other words, what you're trying to do is you're trying to force yourself upon her. You're trying to twist her arm and see if you can manipulate her and force her to do what it is that you want. You should assume, if she was available that night and she wanted to hang out that night, she would have said, well, I get off at 10 or I get off at 11 or I get off at 2 in the morning. We should hang out. But instead, she obviously had plans or she was working late or whatever, and that's why she said to call you tomorrow. But she also could have been saying to call me tomorrow because she was just trying to get rid of you. You got to pay attention to these things. You can't just ignore all that and act like the guys do in movies, whereas they just ignore all that and they just keep coming around and they're persistent and they don't stop and they turn into a stalker, and of course the women always fall for this crap. He says, so in the coming weeks I left it alone and I didn't bring it up to her when I saw her at her job. I stayed friendly and talked with her when she sat down with me. Most recently, however, she approached me and suggested we go out on a date in a few weeks after she gets back from spring break. She wasn't my waitress on this particular night. I would have said, great, well, you got my number, give me a call when you get back in town, we'll plan something then. That is the correct response to it. He says, I suggested that we hang out the next day. Notice what she's saying. I'm getting ready to go out of town, and it's like you're just completely ignoring that. No, let's do it the next day. You're trying to force things here, dude. You're ignoring reality. This makes you look like the 97% of the guys that she's going to encounter. He says, I suggested we hang out the next day before she left, and regardless of her schedule, I'd be happy to meet up with her when she came back on her vacation. She claimed she would be busy, but would text me if she gets some free time before she went out of town. I'm not worried about going out with her if she's too busy for her vacation, and plan on letting her text me as she said she would. You must do that. And guess what? If you don't hear from her, it means she's not interested. Women don't break dates with guys that they're really interested in. They break dates with guys that they don't really want to go out with. That's the reality that you're ignoring here. He says, that said, I'm having trouble figuring if there's genuine interest on her part. Come on, man. How many times you read the book? He says she's flaked twice and now wants to set up a date in 2 weeks. I've received some reasonably positive indicators of interest, but I also recognize that she's a waitress, aka the hired gun. Yeah, it's her job to talk with you and make, just like a stripper, make you feel like you're the best looking guy in the world and she really is into you and really cares about you. He says, I'm fine with taking it easy and not pursuing, but it just kind of came out of nowhere, and I'm curious as to your thoughts. Well, I think I've explained it pretty thoroughly. So let's move on to the next guy's email. He says, hey, Coach, I've been watching your YouTube videos and researched a little about how you became so knowledgeable in the subjects I seem to struggle with. I'm a good-looking guy, and I have a huge heart, and I feel that I'm a good person. My problem is I've always felt not worthy. It affects my friendships and my relationships with women. This may sound silly, but I feel that I want happiness so much I skip certain steps in order to achieve my goals. Well, it's like I talk about in my book. There is a process to causing women to fall in love with you slowly over time. And if you try to shortcut that, especially like if you have a deep-seated belief that you probably developed in your childhood that you're not worthy and you don't deserve to have somebody like that, you're going to try to force things, just kind of like the last guy. Even though you did a good job at asking the girl out, he was basically ignoring her availability and ignoring the fact that she canceled a date. I ask one time, and I make a date. And if a girl ever cancels on me, that's it. If I ask a girl out and she's like, give me your business card, or why don't you give me your number, and she doesn't call me and I see her again, I'm never going to bring it up. She had her opportunity. I want somebody who enthusiastically wants to be with me. And what you got to realize is that when you meet different women on a scale of 1 to 10, they have to perceive you as at least a 5 or better in their eyes in order to have a chance. Now, the higher you move up on that scale, meaning if she perceives you as a 7 or an 8 on her attraction level as far as what she feels towards you, she's really going to be excited to talk to you. She's going to be really enthusiastic. You're going to see it in her face. She's going to smile. She's going to laugh at everything you say. She's going to ask you personal questions, but the lower that attraction level, the less she's going to give a fuck about you. And that's just the way it is. You can't take it personally. Sometimes you're going to ask, things will be going great, and you ask a girl out, and then she won't give you a straight answer, or she'll give you her number, and you'll think, oh, well, huh. And then you call her later, and she just never returns your call. It just means she wasn't interested. That's why you always look at the actions, what they actually do, not so much what they say. Because women don't want to hurt your feelings, and plus they've been hounded and pestered by so many guys that are clueless over the course of their lives that they've built up this defense mechanism to, in essence, blow sunshine up your ass and make you feel like you really got a chance because they don't want to shoot you down in person, because some guys are just, they won't take no for an answer. And they become weird, creepy, and some guys get pissed off. Oh, you think you're better than me? You're not good enough? I'm not good enough for you? You're all stuck up. You're not that hot. They don't want to deal with that shit. There's so many guys around that act that way. It's just easier to say, oh, yeah, here's my phone number. Sure, give me a call. Yeah, I'd love to go out. That'd be great. That sounds awesome. Yeah, give me a call later. Sure, I'll meet you out for drinks tomorrow night. 7 o'clock sounds good. And then you get a text an hour before, oh, my best friend, her parakeet, died. She found a little parakeet floating in the water dish. And I got to go over there and comfort her because we've known each other since we were little girls. And oh, God, you know what? Why don't you give me a call next week and maybe things will be a little bit better. And then you call her next week and she doesn't call you back. It's because she's not interested. if the girl was really interested, you would find out on your date, you know what, my girlfriend, her parakeet died, and she was really trying to get me to come over, but I was really digging you, and I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to hang out. She'll tell you about stuff like that. That's because she wants you to know that, hey, I really like you and I want to be with you. You've got to keep searching until you find somebody that is like that. Don't get hung up on these mediocre to women who just really aren't that interested just because you like her. He says, I work out, I have a job, and a couple of friends that I enjoy being around. I don't do drugs, but sometimes I binge drink due to myself not being happy. I lost my girlfriend due to insecurities and being controlling. What's wrong with me, dude? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just the methods that you're employing in your relationships, your strategy is fucked. It doesn't work. And you obviously need to learn and employ a different kind of strategy. Obviously, that's what's led you to my work. And if you apply the things that I teach, things like this, you won't get dumped for being a controlling, insecure jackass by your girlfriend next time around. Bottom line is, you just have to fill in your knowledge gap, and then you got to apply that new knowledge. It's that simple. You can go to a doctor, a psychologist, or a counselor, and they come up with some weird creative label. I just saw the other day that psychologists now are trying to come up with a new label. It's for like kids that are basically, they daydream a lot. We got to come up with a new label for that and prescribe them specific medication. It's ridiculous. Do I have depression? Do I need to get a dog? Haha. You just need to apply the things I teach. You need to read my book 10 to 15 times to learn the fundamentals. And for those of you that are watching this that haven't read my book yet, on my website, underneath the email sign-up box, there's a picture of my book, an image of it. If you click that, it'll take you right to Amazon. And you can either download the Kindle in under 60 seconds or less to any electronic device, or you can order a paperback version. It's totally up to you. He says, I know you probably get thousands of emails, so I tried to keep it somewhat short. He says, thanks for taking the time. Like I said, the only thing that you're running into is obviously controlling. Now, what causes you to be controlling? Fear. You fear that you're going to lose her. In other words, you fear that you're not enough. And that's going to happen if you have limiting beliefs and you've got a lousy strategy that doesn't work that you're using to show up in your relationships. Just fill in your knowledge gap and apply the things that I teach. And these kinds of things, getting dumped by a woman that you're in love with, will become a thing of the past. The beautiful thing is about what I teach is if you employ it, women will do 100% of the pursuing, 100% of the calling, 100% of the texting. It'll be pretty fucking easy. It'll seem totally effortless. And you really won't have to do a whole hell of a lot other than make dates to hang out, have fun, and hook up when she does get in touch with you. But obviously in the beginning, the first usually 2 to 3 weeks, the guy calls once a week and makes one date. And then most women are going to sleep with the guy by the second or third date. And usually after that happens, she starts calling and texting within a couple of days of your last date. And you just use that as an opportunity to set the next date. And if she's calling you, she's reaching out to you, and you're making dates, you're never going to get dumped in that situation because she's the one pursuing you. And she'll even bring it up. Why am I always calling you? Why am I always the one reaching out to you? And she might punch you in the arm playfully. She knows she's doing it, and she's got a shit-eating grin on her face, but yet she still does it. Look at the actions. She still does that. That's what's amazing about it. So let's get to the next email here, the third and final email. This guy says, hey, Coach, thank you so much for what you do. You've simplified the steps necessary to be a successful dater, and guess what? Dating is much simpler than most men intuit. In fact, it's often our intuition that leads us astray and convinces us to make those fucking numbskull moves. Well, it's not the intuition, it's limiting beliefs and it's fears that's driving you to do those things. He says, like, if I send her just one more text, she'll be persuaded to love me again. Oops. He says, I see this problem. We men are such fixers, always wanting to roll up our sleeves and get under the hood, whether it's a car or a relationship. Good analogy. We struggle with this concept of letting be. Let the woman let be the relationship. We men employ the wrong analogy. When it comes to dating, we use the Mr. Fix-It analogy when we should be using the rock analogy. A car goes bust, steam pouring out from under the hood. Does the rock panic? Does the rock start poking and prodding the car? Does the rock cry uncontrollably? No. The rock just sits there, roadside, stares, and does nothing. In this analogy, there's a good chance the car fixes itself. We men need to be rocks to our women, not panicky little bitches. So true. Well said, dude. I've read your book and I've watched your videos, and I knew I was in good company when you mentioned Doc Love in your book, whom I like as well. He's one of the few men who addresses relationships with so much of the market being saturated by pickup, cold approaches, same-day lays, none of which I am knocking, but the landscape for ripe information written by men for men regarding relationships is sadly barren. Now, I initiate contact hardly, and I let women wonder. I went on one date recently, and it was our third, where she turns and tells me she wants to slap me and beat me up. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Why don't you come over here a little closer? Let's get started. He says, I had an idea why, but let the silence creep until she felt the need to explain. She said she really likes me, but feels the only reason we ever see each other is because she reaches out. Remember, it is a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And when she can't take it anymore, she reaches out. She's unsure of herself. And what happens? Hey, babes, great to hear from you. I can't wait to see you again when you're free to get together. And then you make a date. And then after she hangs up the phone, part of her inside's going, that was kind of silly. I mean, I didn't think he liked me. I was starting to doubt that. And then he makes the next date. So obviously he must like me. And then now she's looking forward to seeing you. But it bothers her because she's having to do so much more of the pursuing with you than any other guy that she's met in the past. But guess what? She still does it. She still calls you. She still pursues you. Remember, feminine energy is about bonding, connecting, opening up to receive love. Women tend to say about 8,000 words a day, and guys tend to say about 2,000 words. They can't help themselves. They're naturally wired to be this way. So when you interact with women and their natural tendencies, it's your job to be the leader, to start the courtship. But in essence, what typically happens is once she feels safe and comfortable and she feels like she's bonding with you, she's going to want to bond with you more and more. And the deeper a woman falls in love with you, the more of your attention and the more of your time she's going to want, to the point where the two of you are living under the same roof and you're a family together. He says the old me would have apologized and been embarrassed, but the new me understands this tension is a good thing. I smiled and affirmed that I wanted to be there and left it at that. And she'll continue to bring up things like that because she'll feign that it bothers her, but at the end of the day, she still calls you and she's still happy to go out with you, and she continues to fall deeper and deeper in love with you because you're acting like a man. She's the one that's unsure of herself. And that's what they like. Even if they say they don't like it, it has a positive effect on their attraction level. He says also a few months ago, I ended a relationship with a live-in girlfriend against my will after I got the sense she wanted to break up. I moved out and went quiet. She contacted me a few times about stupid shit, computer passwords, blah, 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 but then was eager to jump into a conversation, never bringing up the password again until I mentioned it. Remember, I say this in my book and I say it all the time. When women are thinking about you and they want to see you, they reach out to you. And it's always about some other little BS, but when you get into it, she says she was calling about the password, but guess what? You get into the conversation, she never actually brings it up. It's like, oh, hey, I saw a movie last night and it reminded me of you, and I just had to call you and tell you that. What's really going on is she's just reaching out and hoping that you want to see her again, and then you make the next date. That's what they do. They're not going to ask you out because for them to ask you out, that's them being the leader, and they don't want to be the leader. They want to receive you. They're physically designed to receive your strength. And he says, you still need that password? And I said, oh yeah, sure. And she said, glad to see that password was so important. She went quiet for a few more weeks, and she did the exact thing you talk about. She commented on something I wrote on Facebook, indirect contact, prodding, and I ignored it. It's amazing. Women are like that. They're like boomerangs. They come back around and they start liking your Facebook statuses. And then they start commenting on things that are there. And then usually what comes after the commenting, when they notice that you don't do anything about that either, is then you get a direct message from them through Facebook message. Or they'll send you an email or they'll send you a text. It's once they start contacting you through email or private message or text or a phone call, that's when you set the date. It's just amazing. You just watch it. You just see it coming a mile away, and you just sit back and smile. He says the next day she writes me, "How you been?" at 6:30. And he says, "I waited a full day to answer, inviting her out to drinks." She responded with her availability and exclamation marks. Sounds like she's pretty excited. The date is next week with ample time for her to think about seeing me. And guess what? By the time you actually see her next week, she'll even be more attracted to you and even more interested in you than she was right now today when you made the date. It's the beauty. And you're not doing anything. Less really is more, my friends. He says, hang out, have fun, and hook up. No talking about the past or the future. And soon I think I'll be able to reintegrate her into my dating circle and surreptitiously pit her against other women. Competition fosters good behavior, I think. Well, you always want to make women feel more special than any of the other women who may be in your life. Never be arrogant, never be condescending, never act like you're manipulative. It's a bad way to go. So be careful with that or it could blow up in your face. Just remember, when they reach out, and never kiss and tell. And if a woman asks you about the other girls, well, yeah, honey, but none of them are as pretty as you, and they don't have, their lips are just not as sweet and as soft as yours, and none of them are as fun as you are, so come over here and kiss me. Give me a little sugar. Hang out, have fun, hook up, make her feel special, celebrate her, open her up, adore her, love her, cherish her, be grateful that she's there. He says, thanks again for the good advice. Your humor has helped me in those times that I felt the lowest. Good job, dude. You've completely changed your paradigm by just employing a few of the simple principles that I teach, and you're obviously reaping the rewards and the fruit of it. So good job, man. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone, Skype, or email coaching. You can choose any of those options by going to my website, clicking the products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions for choosing whichever option works best for you. And I will talk to you soon.